because it's the silly, stupid, fascinating, weird, wonderful. They're my people, and more often than not, they're the geeky people as well.
I mentioned Betamax. For anybody older, that's the old version of a video cassette. Video cassette is an old version of a DVD. A DVD is not set on the cloud.
Hello and welcome. You have stumbled into Faith and Geekery. I am one of your co-hosts, Becca, and this is
Mark.
Mark. Good evening and welcome, Mark. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm a little bit tired, a little bit rushed off my feet, but all in all, quite well. How are you, Becca?
I'm all right. I am all right. I have self-induced brain fog as a cutting down of eating far too much sugar in my life. So I am essentially going cold turkey. It's a miserable place. We could probably go geeky on diet at some point. On a scale of 1 to 10, how geeky are you feeling today?
Deck chairs.
Deck chairs, thank you.
Yeah.
That doesn't answer. Does that answer my question? And I'm missing
not
a
really.
geeky reference.
About three. I don't feel the most geekiest. It just feels that work has been very busy, life has been a bit busy, and therefore time and space to be geeky is a little bit kind of on the short supply.
Do you ever apply, other than when you're making things for an all-age worship or something interactive like your TARDIS, do you ever apply your geeky approach to some of your crafty things to the way that you do your day-to-day work?
I don't actually know what you mean by that.
Okay. Let me rework it and give you an example. So if I'm trying to organize myself, then I can get a bit geeky about kind of to-do lists and apps and things that all kind of keep me together and give me some haptic rewards of when I tick things off and all the rest of it. Welcome, Stephen Jones. It is very, very lovely to see you here this evening. So is there anything that you think you might do that applies that kind of inclination to deep diving into fandom other than Jesus?
Not really.
Oh.
Sorry. I think
there's your challenge for next week.
I think there's something here about kind of, I do bring some geekiness as into some craft and creativity. Usually, somebody who's a very visual person, I always think in abstracts and comparisons and things like this, which I'm sure causes my colleagues and other people a lot of headaches. So that's kind of how I approach that way. But there are times when I can be geeky. I'm going to say one word, and it's wires. Wires for me.
Wires.
So whether that is... Well, it can be something as elaborate as kind of setting up a PA system or otherwise. But then there are also times when I'm sat in a meeting and I'm just like kind of going, they need to change their audio. They need to just tweak this. And so then it will get rid of that sound. And I have been known in church that whilst the song is playing, I just go and walk to the back and just tweak a couple of knobs and come back forward and be like going, that's better now. Not because I just need that kind of gratification of twiddling some knobs, but it's farther that I'm actually sorting out the sound.
On Faith and Geekery. Knocking all the boundaries down.
Behave. So, what geekiness have you been up to, Becca? And anyone else watching?
I've fair bit of cooking shows. I do like like the processes of cooking and the stories. Marcus Waring's got a program all about the food in Provence and kind of what it looks like to deep dive into another culture, another way of cooking, that's been really influential on him. But it's just kind of, I love how food can honor people and create a sense of togetherness. And I've seen that in action in kind of mixed groups of different ethnicities and backgrounds where food became the unifying thing, but it didn't have to be the same food for everyone. And there's something deeply interesting for me about the process of cooking. I successfully made a low carb fish pie for tea today, and I just find it's a bit of chemistry, it's a bit of creativity, it's a bit of mix and match. So I think,
low carb, does that mean low on potato and low kind of cheesy sauciness?
Zero potato. I made mashed cauliflower, and it was not totally rejected as something disgusting. So
that's good. That's good. So I was trying to work out if you didn't have like I'm glad that you kind of mentioned a sort of topping of some sort, or otherwise I was
otherwise
is it even a pie? Is it just fish?
Just a bowl of slop.
What?
It's not. Yeah, it's got to have something. If it's not going to have pastry, So there was a tablespoon of flour in there, of white flour, but kind of.
Oh, fantastic! That's really good.
Yeah.
That's
what I geeked out on, really. And I'm rebuilding a sim. I will send you that, Stephen Jones. That's very impressive.
Oh, and well done for losing some weight, Stephen.
I'm hoping that's going to do the same for me.
Yeah, I have lost weight and I've gained it back again because I went off Weight Watchers. I was like, done now. And then it's like, it turns out it comes back again very quickly.
Yeah, but, nasty little habit slip back in.
Yeah, it just turns out I like chocolate. I know, who figured that out?
Oh, let's not geek out on chocolate today. My goodness, the cravings are a real thing.
No, they really are. I'm going to say geekiness wise, for me, we got an air fryer, or either we replaced an air fryer. It's one of these things, isn't it, that defines a culture at the moment.
Yeah, I've not got on that bus yet.
Oh, Stephen, I think you have been looking trim. But yes, he also says conference didn't help. When you're catered for, it never helps. Premiering breakfasts, I tell you, blimey.
No, especially low carb, actually. If you're going for lean protein and lots of fresh fruit and vegetables, mass catering is not your friend.
No, indeed. But yeah, so we've got a replacement of air fryer because our other one, the handle fell off, which it was second hand to us anyway, nod to Liesel, who basically said, we're not really into that. We got into it in a big way. And by the end of them like handing it over to us, they were like, what are you doing next with it? What are you doing? We hadn't even thought about doing that with it. And we're like, do you want it back? And they're like, no, we've given it to you now, but we're intrigued. So I don't even know if they're
the most interesting thing that you have air fried, or the thing that surprised you most about being delicious in an air fryer?
The one thing that my son raves about is using basically broccoli chips. So basically you trim the kind of the main trunk of a broccoli and kind of lightly toss it in oil, paprika, a little bit of salt, that sort of garlic kind of thing, and then fry it. Soften it first in the boiling water, then kind of put all the stuff on it, and then put it in the air fryer. And they're like yummy chips, but broccoli.
Do they go crunchy?
Ish. Huh. They're just really nice and firm broccoli. Yeah, it's nice.
Firm broccoli.
But, I'm not selling it. It's like all the spices and kind of some crispiness of like a chip, but you still have that. But I love broccoli stalks anyway. So.
Yeah, I do. I'm a fan of broccoli.
Yeah.
There you go. Did you ever think that we would get geeky about vegetables? That was
Yeah.
a surprise twist for me, actually. Yeah.
All the time. We've lost one
All
person.
the time.
So turning off. What are they going on about? The only other thing is, I've been playing this evening. I was playing what's it called? The train game. What is it called?
This is why we're often geek adjacent at Faith and Geekery, because unlike some of our dear Faith and Geekery friends,
Ticket to
Mark
Ride.
and I don't always retain every name on the tip of our tongue. Ticket to Ride. I have never heard of Ticket to Ride. Do you want to explain it to us?
Basically, you have a board game with a layout of a country. The traditional one was America and North America, and basically you have 45. I'm boring you already. For podcast listeners, Becca is
Becca yawned and moved her hand away far too soon.
So basically, you have 45 carriages, and you have so many destination tickets where you've got to traverse from one place to another. And between each significant town, you have a couple of routes that you can take. Some of them are coloured, so you have to match tickets to the. So you've got to match the train carriages colours to the kind of the journey. I'm not explaining this very well, but basically, you kind of go from one place to another, and each leg of the journey is a different colour. Sometimes you can do just a random colour, but it all has to be one colour. And so there are some legs of the journey that are like 1 or 2 or 3, all the way up to 6 carriages long, and you have to have all of those colours. So it's quite like a strategic game. And the reason why I know it's 45 carriages is because my son, turns out that he'd picked up some of the spares out of the board game bag, and it became crucial, because it's not just about the distance, it's about making the best use of the 45 rather than having 48. But I wasn't being picky. He'd actually realised that he'd had too many, so we had to count.
Interesting. And do you get the song Ticket to Ride stuck in your head every time you play?
I've got it. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Basically,
no,
all the
I
time.
definitely would. I'm looking at pictures. So do you get actual little carriages?
Yeah, the little plastic things, and you have a set colour. So it does get a bit confusing, because you kind of have tickets with different coloured carriages on, but that is all about where you're allowed to put them on the board.
Okay. So your train is the set colour?
Yes, but the leg of the journey has to be certain colours, so it's good. So yeah. Anything else, folks? Anything else geeky or otherwise? Becca, yourself, you said about redoing some Sims.
Yeah, I'm rebuilding it. Well, I'm building a new sim. At the moment, it's a compilation of lots of different barn buildings into a kind of modern. It's very lovely.
Cool.
It's basically how I would love to live if I could also be bothered digging a garden. Hopefully that'll be next year. Then I'll be geeking out on my garden.
No. And Steve has also said that the tune is now stuck in his head.
Yeah, you're welcome for that, Stephen.
My pleasure. Coolio. Is that the end of our little geeky intro?
I think so. Could Stephen tell us what he's been geeking about?
He has not. But I don't think we're going to be like... Are we going to be brutal? Right. We're going to say we're not going to move on until we...
I mean, we're not going to move on. I mean, we are going to move on, but, we could have an uncomfortable pause that would not go over well on video or podcast. But, yeah. We can move on.
Should we move on to geeky news? So, geeky news. Oh, and have we got Stephen mentioning about his geekiness? Not recently, but a few weeks ago, I upgraded my PC to 4 monitors. In fact,
good gracious!
I think Stephen showed me a picture of that, so that's very cool.
It's like Captain Universe. Is that the guy in Firefly that has all those monitors? Mr. Universe? No. Oh, anyway, tell us geeky news and I'll be quiet.
So we've just got a brief one this week. We have some posters. We have a Gladiator 2 that comes out in cinemas in November, and so that is what was his name? Paul Mescal, Pedro Pascal, and Denzel Washington and Connie Nelson. Is it Nelson? Yeah, so interesting. I'd be very intrigued to know where they go with Gladiator 2, because I was fairly sure Gladiator 1 was quite conclusive, unless it's just like a couple of years later, same sort of issue sort of thing. It'll be,
I mean, it's not following on the same story, is it?
But I don't know how it can do, and a lot of time has passed, so yeah, it's a bit.
Hang on. Following Lucius, the son of Maximus's loved Lucilla, after Maximus's death.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so does that mean it's Maximus's son?
Yeah, it must be really.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's a handsome chap. Looks well cast.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see where they go with that, and is it too much of an echo of what has gone before? Be very interesting. The next thing is Time Bandits, and this one crept up on me today. It is, it's kind of got, I think Taka Waititi is taking the reins of this Netflix rehash of Time Bandits, and it's got Jermaine Clement from, you'll know him from Flight of the Conchords or the Crab from Moana. So you can see him on the crown with the weird kind of headdress in the background. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how they re-engineer this, or kind of work it for the 21st century. The original, which is 43 years old, is kind of known for its actors of small stature being the kind of pivotal in the roles. And so it would just be interesting to see how they reinterpret it for the 21st century and how it comes across. But I remember it being quite brutal as a kid, and then kind of watching it again a few years later and thinking, blimey, it is still quite brutal. It is like bleak.
You know what I found most upsetting was this little boy right at the end of the movie sat there holding a piece of coal that was his family. And I'm like, that's just so miserable. I hope they don't do that. I hope they...
Actual spoiler.
That's an actual spoiler. I could have
just
said,
watch it.
Holding a piece of coal.
Yeah.
Forget the rest of the sentence.
Yeah. It was bleak, but I remember also as a kid wanting to push my bedroom wall to see if it kind of suddenly pushes back into an alternate dimension.
Obviously. I have a wardrobe still that has the bent nails in the back of it from where myself and my brother actually pushed our way through to try and get to Narnia. So we were so pleased with ourselves until we realised we just wrecked a wardrobe in order to do it, and then fixed it.
We've got to be really careful of what we kind of present to our children as viable options. That being said, from a Christian perspective, I remember going on a mission, and I can't remember if it was the same mission with you, Becca, or not. But basically just kind of sharing about kind of church to a random place. And I went and chatted to a family, and this little girl kind of went, "I'm going upstairs to pray," and she kind of ran upstairs, and I was like, oh, "Okay." And I was chatting to her mum, and I was like, "Does she do that often?" Thinking, is she going up to her bedside? Is it that sort of thing? And the mum was like, no, she goes and prays in the wardrobe because she saw Narnia, and we talked about how it was like a story about God, and now she goes up to her wardrobe and prays to God in her wardrobe. And I was like, oh, that's really cute. Also, how old is she? Because I think she was a little bit older than what you'd expect. But it was still lovely, nonetheless.
I
It was
never
still
thought
very
to pray in my wardrobe.
Yeah, I hadn't until that point. And then finally, I'm going to go to the next slide. Cows.
Oh.
I'm fairly sure at least one of our viewers will be happy to see some cows because today, 9th of July, is Cow Appreciation Day. And so here's just a couple of cows.
Happy Cow Day, Mark.
Yeah, and same to you. And same to you.
I'm sure there's probably a more moo-full way of saying Happy Cow Day in cow.
Yes.
I'm not sure what that is, though.
No. And that is the end of Geeky News.
I believe we're going to move into a quick fire quiz, are we not now, Mark?
Oh, yes. Go for it.
Excellent. Let me find the questions. Are you prepared? I'm not going to go easy on you just because you have come up with these questions. I have moved them around and I've tried to put the spaces in the right place. When Mark gave me the list that he's been using, it came with absolutely no formatting whatsoever. So there were some really bizarre either ors, which I hope I have edited out. Right. Are you ready?
And do I get one pass or not?
You can, as in to keep two. Yes. You can have
Fantastic.
one. So use it wisely. Don't
Okay.
use it on the first one. Okay. Snails or ladybirds?
Ladybirds.
Bridgerton or Pride and Prejudice?
Neither, but I guess Pride and Prejudice.
Pizza or curry?
Pizza.
Disney or Star Wars?
Ooh, Star Wars?
Question mark. Football or cricket?
Cricket.
Board games or computer games?
Pass.
You
As in
want to
collect
keep
both of those, yeah.
Both, okay. Princess Peach or Princess Jasmine?
Princess Peach.
Cosplay or murder mystery?
Cosplay.
Chocolate or cake?
Chocolate every day of the week.
Firefly or Red Dwarf?
No offence, but Red Dwarf.
No, fair enough. PC or console?
Console.
Lettuce or peas?
Peas.
Lord of the Rings or Narnia?
Narnia.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars, again.
Minifigures or painted miniatures?
Minifigures.
I know the answer to this one, but Doctor Who or Black Mirror?
Doctor Who.
Pokemon or Transformers?
Transformers.
Cream or custard?
Custard.
Ice cream sundae or ice lolly?
Oh, I'm a purist. I just like ice cream. Ice lolly.
See, I only have ice cream for the toppings. Board games or computer games? We had that one already.
But you
Yes.
had, yeah.
Do you want to answer that question again? You can answer it differently now that I've repeated it.
Computer games.
Cows or llamas?
Cows.
Tabletop roleplay games or tables?
Tabletop roleplay games. Down with the
Spaghetti or
tables.
mashed potato?
Mashed potato.
Audiobook or podcast?
Podcast.
Geekery or faith?
Geekery.
If you could pick 3 geeky fellows to play a game with, who would they be?
Okay, I wasn't expecting this one. I really am enjoying the delight of Dice Company, which is a fantastic tabletop roleplay game podcast, and any 3 of those people would be lovely, because I'm a big fan of theirs and they've given me lots of shout outs. So them guys and
Them
girls.
guys. Nice. Guys and girls?
Yeah, there's a couple.
Nice. I thought you might choose someone and choose a Doctor Who. Would you, if you were to choose a Doctor Who to play a game with?
Well, I mean, I guess if I'd thought a bit longer, then I'd maybe sort of talk about maybe David Tennant. But any opportunity to meet David Tennant would be an opportunity, wouldn't it?
You never met David Tennant?
Nope.
Well, okay. Imagine you're going to meet David Tennant.
Mm-hmm.
What would your perfect scenario be of meeting David Tennant, where you're not just fanboying and weeping on the floor?
Casually over a pint. I have no idea. Dressed as Rose Tyler.
I just love you so much, David. Right. Ideal scenario where you're meeting David Tennant. What does that look like?
I think I wouldn't want to put him on the spot because and again with any celebrity really, I think I'd rather just casually bump into them, or if they were genuinely kind of meeting me, then I would have a drink with them, and whether that's in a coffee shop or in a bar, I don't care really. It'll be. Do you know what I mean? I would want to meet them for who they are,
them,
rather
than
than
a famous person.
Yeah. I have bumped into a couple of famous people, and I do just try to meet, just to, respect them as who they are, and fight every urge to take a photo of them, and which I do. So,
my most famous one, and it was a few years ago, was coming out of Wonder Woman, and literally walked straight into Simon Pegg, who is quite a lot shorter than me, and I did have a moment of just. And then walked off. He also had the same moment because we had collided quite as thoroughly as we had.
I bumped into Woody Harrelson literally, and nobody believed me when I bumped into it until I showed the newspaper the next day that my head was in the background, because he was like going incognito with a beanie hat on, and basically we'd shouldered each other. He spun around, got a photo in the face from the paparazzi sort of thing, and I was like, oh sorry, and I was like oh, and then kept on walking, and it's just like, that's Woody Harrelson. And the friends that I was with didn't believe me, and I was just like, oh, look, they were there, pretending to show a photo for podcast listeners. So yeah,
That's it.
is that the end of the quick fire?
Yeah, let me double back. Was there anything? I don't think. Thing is, we've spent so much time talking to each other about all of these things. I think I was surprised by your ambivalence towards Bridgerton and Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, sorry.
I know. I think I often get that I'm disappointed when people don't also love the same things that I love, and I feel an instant sense
of death.
Disconnect.
Yeah, sorry folks. I've just never really been into Pride and Prejudice, and I mean it's alright, but it's not something that I'm either hot nor cold over. And Bridgerton,
Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Have you seen that one?
I've got the DVD, but I've never opened it. It's on to watch at some point, but it's like, in case of extreme boredom, break glass. It's still in its cellophane.
Nice, break plastic.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and then you said about spaghetti or mashed potato, and I'm just like, I'm not that bothered about. If you'd said the noodles, then I would have been, I think it would have been noodles, but then mash and noodles, that would have been a hard tear.
Would that have been the hard choice? Which do you think you'd err towards?
And that's it. That's where because mash and potatoes, roast dinner.
Thank you.
Very,
There
very
we go
high.
again with the carbs. How often do we talk about carbs?
Noodles.
Is this a common thing and I've never noticed before?
Yeah, maybe we haven't. Maybe it's just very pertinent for tonight.
Maybe it's just cruelty today.
Yeah, sorry. But but then noodles are like the basis for a lot of Asian kind of dishes and otherwise. And I think that's where I would
Big fan
struggle.
of pho.
I
really, really love making pho.
Yeah.
But then I also love mashed potato and gravy.
Exactly. So that would be the makeup. But I would be like, I can't really decide.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So, Yes.
Thank you. Well done. I think you did well enough. I think you were fairly speedy.
Yeah. And any surprises?
No, I don't. This
fair
is what I mean is, you know,
Yeah.
how long have I known you for? Far too long now.
Yeah.
Nothing really stood out.
Sorry.
I mean, down with tables. That was a bit harsh.
Yeah, but I like role-play games, so I like the adventure. I like the idea that if we didn't have tables, then suddenly we'd have to get very creative with what we're doing, including like
Then it would
how
just
we're going to
be
have soup.
miniature LARPing.
Yeah. But like if for example, you know, if we had to get rid of all tables in the world or tabletop roleplay games, then I'd be like, embrace the no tables. That would just be carnage but hilarity. I maybe have thought about that too much.
Why would we get rid of the table?
That's what I'm saying. If you're keeping one or the other,
that particular policy.
I think it just naturally happens, doesn't
Be
it?
like in Home with the oods, where they select something and then it all sucks up into a bubble.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah. So
Like
that'd be the
toilets.
sort of thing.
Good.
Brandon's put tree stump role-playing games. Yeah, because that's what it would have to become, wouldn't it? Or just theatre of the mind.
Floor top. On the floor role-playing games.
Well, everything would suddenly... Anyway, I feel as if we've gone down a misty, dark alley.
Terrible rabbit hole.
Of regret and boredom. So that was the quick fire of the very slow burn.
Tumble down the rabbit hole into Mark's brain.
Yes, thank you. Welcome all. Grab a ticket. So tonight we are doing things a little bit kind of wound down already, as you can tell, folks. And we are talking about finding calm. And I think this is a broad subject, really, about kind of how do we find calm amongst the geekiness? How do we find calm amongst the wider world, if we want to go that far? I think for me, I was reflecting that some of my hobbies I actually struggle to find calm with. So painting miniatures really stresses me out because the thing is so small, my hands are so big, and I've got a paintbrush that has got a mind of its own, and therefore trying to paint it and represent exactly what I want it to look like on a little figure, it is a blooming stressful thing, and therefore I actually don't find it calming to paint little minifigures, which I'm sure others might do, but for me, I actually really struggle with that. Whereas kind of going for a run, actually the process of running I don't find calming, but it's the calming afterwards, and as I'm walking back, having done the exercise, that is when I kind of go, actually, you know what, this is okay. And as I've got this kind of carved out time to cool down and to walk back home, I actually find that really tranquil and really kind of helpful for mental health, as well as pondering the universe and everything in it.
See, I can't do that when I'm moving. And someone said, "Are you dyspraxic?" the other day, and I'm fairly sure I'm not. But I do find the act of walking to be fairly overstimulating. I'm very, very conscious of what my ankles and my knees and how I'm walking and what the pavement is like, and so actually where I find stillness, I can find stillness in a crowd with lots of people. So whether that is people all singing the same song or doing the same thing, or right next to a body of water, doesn't matter what the water is.
You're about to say next to a body. I was about to go like,
right next to a body, when I'm looking down at it. There's something about the timelessness of water. I've always said when I grow up I want to be a mermaid, and there's something about the sheer size of what water is and what it represents, and how it is just in this constant cycle, that when I sit next to, I realized a few years ago when I was intentionally stopping at the river on the way home from work before going home and kind of switching hats and going into mum mode, that if I stopped by water, and the River Trent in Nottingham is a huge body of water, really deep, really wide, that I could, it wasn't just in that moment that I was calming, relaxing, letting go the stresses of the day, but I was also tapping into all the other times I've ever sat beside water, whether that was a river or the sea, that it created spacey, wacy, timey-wimey moment that connected all those other times, that even if I went for 3 minutes, I was able to sink really deeply, really quickly into this calm space that just allowed me to realign with self, connect with my sense of the great big divineness of God, before then going on. And literally 3 minutes would be enough to just kind of realign, like a chiropractor snapping your joints back into place. That mystical moment of water was really helpful for me.
That sounds good.
Stephen says, I find music particularly calming, especially when I'm on my own in the car. See, I find driving quite calming if I can get out of my head and listen to something, and it's usually an audiobook that'll hold my attention enough. But because a car takes all of your body doing all for the same purpose all at the same time, I find that calming. But also the danger of music for me is that it becomes the soundtrack. If my thoughts and thinking are very, and I talk about vibrating very frantically, music just becomes the background accompanying to the whatever saga is going on in my head. So it can be beautifully calming, and other times the exact opposite.
Yeah. I think for me, it depends what sort of calm I'm after. That if I'm needing to kind of just relax a little bit, then I will put on a podcast. I will listen to some music. I will listen to a radio station, depending on who is presenting. Some of them will just wind me up. So there will be certain times of the day which I will just genuinely switch them off. But then there will be moments in my day, if I'm needing just to find that peace, be prayerful, be a bit deeper, and just kind of ponder life, then I will turn music completely off in the car. Sometimes I may even talk out loud. Sometimes I might just sing. But in my head, I'm kind of thinking people might just think that I'm singing along to the radio, when actually I'm just kind of having a moment to myself. Sorry, this is assuming that I'm on the car on my own. Not like my kids in the background going, Dad, you're freaking us out. It's if I'm just in the car on my own. That does allow me to have some space. The other thing for me though is it depends on the music. That if I've kind of got upbeat music, then I find that my driving sometimes is a bit more erratic, and therefore I almost have to. Yes. I have to steward my music intake. That being said, 3 days ago, I introduced my children to my collection of Weird Al Yankovic tracks, and so they're like
strong choices for your children.
Yeah. So my children have been requesting a couple of them over and over again, which I'm all there for. So a bit of The Saga Begins and Yoda by Weird Al Yankovic, which is fantastic.
I do find myself bursting into that song occasionally.
I think my only hesitation now is that the kids are going to kind of go, oh yeah, we like their songs, and then they're going to hear like American Pie and be going,
yes,
who's made this song rubbish? And I have to kind of go, no, that was the original. That is the kind of quintessential amazing piece of art, music, and you are used to what Weird Al Yankovic has completely butchered in a humorous way. But I also then was finding myself having to explain the concept of Amish, as well as gangsters and gangsters paradise, and therefore Amish paradise eventually. And they're like, huh? But we got there, and they do enjoy that one as well. So anyway, I've just talked about myself there.
It's a side tangent on music.
Yeah.
What else makes you feel calm? Okay, are you able to intentionally do, people kind of use practices like mindfulness or some kind of centering practices that allow you to sit with your own thoughts without external stimulation and just be still, quiet, and aware of what's going on internally and externally?
I think that I get easily distracted visually, and anything, even if I was, for example, I was sat in a coffee shop earlier today having a meeting, and someone just kept on walking past, and it wasn't anything about them. It was just that, just in the corner of my eye, they kept on going past, and so therefore I was just distracted by them walking past every time, and I suddenly became very aware of it. Then I was trying not to, and then I was there kind of trying to keep engaged with the person talking, and even with my own kind of conversation, that I was just like, right, and just having to really kind of focus in on the person, because visual stimulus is really difficult for me, and therefore what I do find, if I need to process something properly, then I go for a walk, because it means that I'm just surrounded by the normal stuff and nothing that is important. So sitting at a desk sometimes, this is our spare room desk because there isn't any work on here, because that is, again, it will be a distraction to me if I have that sort of stuff. So it is kind of visual cues for me is the biggie. And again, it depends on how cluttered my brain feels, whether music or podcast do help or they get in the way. And so sometimes I will just have to kind of turn everything off. I have been known to sometimes put my headphones in my ears without anything on, just to try and dumb down some senses. But that's a rarity. That's a rarity. How about you? I mean, do you find stimuluses, or how do you kind of find yourself calming?
See, I think, and it's a fine line between absolutely needing to be still and quiet, and I love the tree outside my lounge door. It feels like I live in a tree house, and I can stare at that for a long time and kind of feel the constant flow of words and thoughts kind of just still a little. But I think what I need to get back into the practice of is journaling and giving the words and the thoughts permission to breathe, not necessarily to actually make sense of them, just to allow them out of my head so that I can then find that that's still a place. But it took an awfully long time to be okay to be in my own head. I went on retreat once to Holyrood House in North Yorkshire, or Yorkshire, some part that is more north than where I am now. I'm sorry for those that actually know where it is. And it was supposed to be some level of guided retreat. And it turned out that the person that was going to kind of guide us through stuff wasn't there. So the retreat ended up being a silent retreat because there weren't really people around. I was just in quite a bleak area of the country. It must have been autumn time. It got dark very early. And I remember having to just face my own brain and realize that it wasn't as terrifying as my constant kind of avoidance of the things I don't want to be thinking about was, and that I could rest in myself. And that was an incredibly helpful journey towards mental health. was realizing my brain is not the enemy, that the thoughts I have may well not be anything to do with who I am as a person. They might just be thoughts that are there, and that kind of that transient nature. But I think where that comes into my geekeriness is the fact that I was able to anthropomorphize the jumble of thoughts, and they became a dragon in my head. I remember doing mindfulness training and learning to be still, learning to meditate, and learning to just notice what's going on in my head. And I noticed during that process, and accompanied with some counseling, that there was this tangled web of darkness that I couldn't unpick, and I was just scared of, and spent a lot of time avoiding really even looking it in the eye. It was the bogeyman in the corner, and by being brave enough and using my imagination and picturing what it really was, and then picturing it as something that could be for good, that like in one of Dumbledore's greatest lines is that we're all capable of light and darkness. That's a terrible paraphrase of what he said. But that idea that kind of battling through and realizing that life is not black and white either or, but it's actually a jumble of all the rest of it, that gave me permission to be still within myself and start to see that tangled web that I'd spent so long avoiding as maybe friend, not foe. And then slowly I was able to find calmness with that. But it took kind of being brave, being my own champion and hero in my story. And I think I'd been set up for that with things like Lord of the Rings and Narnia, and that they give you permission in your own epic story, of which you'll only get one and you're the center star, that I could battle through, and I could then, we had that conversation about kind of post-apocalyptic stories the other week, that my favorite bit is actually the calm of it afterwards, or the moments where, Sam and Frodo are sitting around a fire eating potatoes, because life isn't just an endless slog and an endless battle. Life is finding those really lovely, simple moments of the in-between.
And carbs again.
And carbs again. Potatoes.
Sorry.
I swear we've not talked about potatoes this much as we have today.
We really haven't, so I'm sorry for calling you out on that one.
Potato.
I think Becca's broken. I think it's interesting because kind of going through kind of theological training and things like that, the whole kind of part of the calendar was to kind of go on these silent retreats and things. And the thing for me is, it was like half the people going, we're going to go on a silent retreat, folks. Oh, it's going to be really good and going to really help you. And I'm like kind of going, look, I've been brought up in the middle of nowhere, mate. I have been to myself. I am completely I'm completely at ease with my silent thoughts. Kind of members of my family, farming members of my family, are kind of the most stoic and the most quiet people in the field. Literally in a field, they wouldn't be talking to you because they're digging. Why would you be talking when you're digging? So I've always been brought up with that, and then kind of being so isolated, it has never bothered me. And I think I came to terms with my inner thoughts a long, long, long time ago. And therefore, I think I know how to tune myself. And I think that by that, I mean, I would often, as a teenager, go for a long walk. I'm sure I've said this before, but basically I would spend half the time praying and kind of just splurging to God and saying, okay, God, here I am. None of this kind of these and thous and that. It was just genuinely like a one-sided conversation, saying, okay, God, here I am, this is what I'm dealing with today, this is how I'm feeling. And I would walk and literally talk out, and as a car came past, I would pretend to look and be doing something else, and then as soon as they went around the corner, I'd continue to gesture and talk to God again, and then I would get to a point where I've run out of things to say, and then I would stop, and then I would just ponder. There was sometimes a little dike or something that I could throw a stone in, and he would go plop, and then kind of turn back around again, and would then just spend the rest of that time in quiet, knowing that I've walked in one direction, and then just being quiet and allow myself that freedom to think. And at first I used to kind of tell myself off for going off with random thoughts, but actually I was then aware that God may be using those random thoughts and speak to me in those kind of randomness and otherwise. And so I think I've been quite attuned to that, and I think that's where maybe where my kind of attitude about needing to go for a walk is, and on all that kind of stuff, is about trying to find my calmness there. That being said, I don't know if it's because I'm a country bumpkin sort of thing, or I was, that I don't like the idea of jumping into a car and then going for a walk. I'm just like,
oh, I love that idea.
Well, no, because I'm there going, but why am I going in a car when I can just literally go out my door and walk? So I struggle with that element. There's a little hey-o from Lydia.
Hey,
Welcome,
happy
Lydia.
Cow Day, Lydia.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen that bit, Lydia, and you're catching up, it is the second Tuesday in July is Cow Appreciation Day. And so, happy Cow Appreciation Day, Lydia. Hope you're doing well with your cows. And there we go. Cow Appreciation Day. Moo-hoo.
See, there we go. There's the appropriate response. Moo-hoo!
And also with moo. Oh dear. So, anything else? Anything else to talk about? Calm?
It's interesting how we see different definitions of calm, isn't it? And it doesn't have to be the absence of feeling, and it doesn't have to be the absence of movement, and it doesn't have to be the absence of noise. But it's kind of that centered place of accepting what is.
Yeah.
Cows are incredibly peaceful, but also quite big. So being surrounded by cows, I find less calming if I'm sat on the floor.
But I think there are these things that are that I want to say are centering. So there was a period of my life when I used to go into the North Sea bodyboarding, and even though there was crashing of waves and you're in the absolute wildness of the North Sea and it's blowing cold, there is a moment of where you're like there going, okay, God, I'm in your hands here, and I'm completely in the wildness of the sea. And therefore it's very humbling and very kind of like it grounds you to kind of go, oh gosh, it is just me and thee, God.
The power of it.
And I think I can find that sometimes when you're in nature and there's nothing else around you, and occasionally if you come across a cow, always be careful in the field of cows, but coming across wild animals and beasts and all kinds, that you suddenly do feel that kind of closeness to nature, away from the structures, away from the normal things that you are used to, that can kind of ground you in a way that is weird, or that can be helpful.
They did a study. I don't think I've talked about it on here before. I do talk about it quite a lot. But there was a study looking at the impact of the experience of awe on your mental health. And they asked two groups of people to go for a walk. One of the groups, half of the group, went for a walk they just walked out the front door and walked in whatever their location was. for the same period of time as the other group. But the other group was asked to go for a walk in an area of outstanding natural beauty. So ocean, sea, mountains, something that just makes your breath catch. And they asked them at the end of every walk to record and to have something to measure, to take a selfie. So they all took a selfie at the end. And then over the course of however many weeks, I'm sorry that I don't do the facts very well, they got a facial recognition expert to look at all of these selfies and say whether they noticed anything different. And they'd all done a similar amount of exercise. And they said there might be slight changes in the faces for the people that walked in the area of outstanding natural beauty, but that wasn't the most significant bit of the finding. What they found with the people, because when you take a selfie, you end up with well, that doesn't work very well. You end up with a face in the middle of it. Everyone kind of holds their phone out, you get your face. They said what happened was they reorientated the camera and held it further away. So it was still a picture of them, but their face was smaller in proportion to the rest of the world around them. That their identity, their picture of themselves was then put into a context of the area that had that moment with them. And that was why, therefore, that practice of awe, of going something. And I think, I can have those moments sometimes in church of just the breath-catching moments that I am not nearly as big or as important as my brain likes to make me feel in my own life. That there is something far bigger and mightier and longer serving and timeless, of which I am a part, and I am still a part of that. But in terms of perspective, it's a really kind of healthy practice. So going for an awe walk as intentional practice is a really good thing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
For the people on podcast, Mark has now got a very reflective look on his face. So he considers all the walks that he's gone from.
I think it's a point of calm, really. I find that I sometimes, when I'm in town, I have to focus my alter my horizon. That sometimes when I'm in town, I can have my head facing down, whether it's been looking at my phone, whether it's just looking generally 6 foot away from me when I'm walking around, to that actually I've got to reorientate myself to look at the horizon and look above the buildings and see sky. And that for me is a grounding kind of thing for me, that if I can't get away to the countryside, if I can't, if I am just kind of in the same old place, same time and time again, to be able to actually just look and see a horizon, that for me is helpful, because it allows me to see natural light and creation far away, rather than just the grey and the dirge of towns. But yeah, I think.
See, I'm a bit of a townie. I've probably spent more time living in towns than I have living in the country, though I've lived in the country as well. And my challenge to myself has always been to see the things that people forget to look at. So I love seeing a tree growing in a gutter, or a weed growing through a crack, or kind of facades of old buildings that underneath you might have poundland, but above it is a century-old frontage that a whole different life and generation put up. And there's something, I don't know, really humbling that we come and we go. That Poundland sign is going to disappear probably far sooner than the facade above it.
Other pound shops are available. Sorry,
Poundland.
But no, you're right. I'm aware of time, and folks, there hasn't been any other geeky gallery things either. So no one has posted for 2 whole weeks. So it must be a time of year of where our geekiness is taking a battering because of work or because of the summer or because of the storms. Yeah, people are enjoying things and not taking photos, which, if that's your thing, by all means, enjoy that. But if you are wanting to share a little bit about your geekiness, your hobbies, your interests, and it can be as broad or as, as niche as you like, please do find our Discord community. It's in the blurb.
There is no judgment here.
No,
if you identify as a geek, you are one, and you are warmly welcomed into the fold.
To be honest, we embrace nerds as well. So
yes, we'll
it's
just be slightly quieter and won't necessarily look you directly in the eye.
Yes, but folks, do find us on our Discord community if you are catching up on this later than we are going live, whether on the podcast, whether catching on YouTube, Facebook, la-di-da-di-da. But folks, do give us a like, do kind of share us amongst your friends if you feel that you want to.
You've got 1 week to catch up on Doctor Who if you intend to do so before the Doctor Who special next Tuesday. Is that right?
That is correct. So catch up on the new Who, and we are going to be joined by 2 guests. One is going to be 2 whole guests. Yeah, 2 whole guests. It's going to be David, who was
Tennant.
Unfortunately not, but just as cool is going to be David S, who was with us previously to talk about Doctor Who more generally, and I also went to see the finale with him, as well as Rich, who is a fab friend and somebody who I actually did some Doctor Who spoofs with back in my college days. So
can we relive one of those spoofs? Is there video evidence that we could
I can post them up on Discord and otherwise
please.
to share
Can we put them on in the show next week? Is that possible?
They're quite long, so I don't think we'd really want to bore people with that. Yeah, I might be able to find a clip. I will just make sure that Rich is happy with that, because I would not want to put him off or make him run for the hills. Yes. But
awesome.
Yeah, so I think that is it. But yes, next week is our Doctor Who special. Folks, also, if you are interested in being a guest and sharing your kind of stuff, if the Geeks Gallery is not enough for you, that you want to go, you know what, I can talk about this, I can talk on, then please do be in touch. Please do kind of send us a message and otherwise. But thank you, folks, for joining us tonight or whenever you may be listening to us. And I hope it has been helpful to you to reflect and ponder about where you find your calm. Anything left to say, Becca?
I don't think so. I think we just sit with the calm, Mark.
Sit with the calm.
Yeah. Or lie. Or stand. For those on podcast, we are now looking at a frog peeking out of the duckweed in a pond.
And with that, folks, have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.